a goodie bag of all of the stuff that I am going to be showing you today. And let me just show you the folder just so that you can see. It's just got everything in it that I'm going to show you. The presentation and all the links that are associated with the presentation. And in fact, there's one of the pages is called Workshop Links or OSCQR Implementation Plan Workshop Links. And this has every single one of the links that you can see um, in my Chrome window there. All those links are here. So you don't have to worry about capturing anything or screenshotting anything or worry that you don't have access to these things. So then in terms of the agenda, the first thing we're going to do is to do a brainstorming activity so that you can start to think about building your implementation plan around whatever initiative it is that you may have that you'd like to use OSCQR to help you achieve. So we'll do a little bit of a brainstorm. And then this is modeling this activity so that then you can go to your campus or department or program and do this activity with them as the initiator of an implementation plan around OSCQR and whatever initiative you're trying to achieve. Then, as part of the agenda for today, after the brainstorming activity, we're going to go get your implementation plan. You're going to create a copy of it for yourself from my template. And then I'm going to go through it and explain to you kind of how to use it and what all the pieces are and what you can think about when as you're looking at it and what some of the additional resources and materials are that I have prepared for you to assist you in this process. And then I'm going to give you a tour of the OSCQR website, the interactive dashboard and rubric, and give you a little bit of a tour of the rubric so that you know what materials and tools you can use in a larger scale implementation of an OSCQR process. So we've talked earlier in this season about self-assessment at the faculty level. We've talked about course reviews, which is a model. There's various types of models, but essentially somebody who didn't teach the course reviews a course and gives feedback to the person or persons who did design the course. And so these tools that I'll show you today are intended to help you with a bit of a larger scale activity to help you as a manager of a process like that, to give you the tools and information and resources that you can use to support and scaffold the implementation plan that I hope you will create using the template that you're going to get as part of this session. If you know me or know SUNY Online, you know that our goal is to serve the campuses and the faculty and the students of the State University of New York to ensure that we provide them with information, tools, and resources to ensure high quality online instructional designs that help to meet accessibility standards and that encourage continuous improvement and regular and systematic review of courses that are regularly refreshed. And so those are our goals. That's our goal. Part of our mission, no matter what area of the organization you're looking at, that we're always working towards those goals. Um, for those of you who may not be familiar with OSCQR, we have a video that describes really well what OSCQR is and what it does. And it is distinct from other course quality rubrics that you might be familiar with. If you're using OSCQR, then you already know, but it is, non-evaluative. You can't fail OSCQR. And it's intended to support a culture of iteration in course design and continuous improvement, and to support the relationship between faculty and instructional designers. And those are intentional design elements. Everything in OSCQR is intentionally designed and distinct, as I mentioned, from other types of rubrics that are, really, score and have parameters around them about who can use them and when they can be used and how you need to be trained in order to use them. So we intentionally developed OSCQR differently. We have an hour and a half today, and I just wonder how many people have already seen this video, because I don't want to show it if most people have already seen it. Can you either raise your hand or put in the chat if you've already seen the little promo video? It's about 5 minutes long. Erin, can you give me a sense?
Looks like several people have seen it, but I can also put the link in the chat to the video and folks can go watch it if they need to.
Okay.
That
All
would
right.
help.
The reason I liked, oh, Jacqueline just raised her hand. Jacqueline, do you have a question? Maybe not. You can put it in the chat, and Erin will let me know
Maybe
what
just
your.
saying that she'd seen it, maybe.
Okay, all right. So I don't want to do it if a lot of people have seen it already. You have the link. It's in YouTube, in our YouTube channel, and you're welcome to take a look at it. The reason I like to, well, if you haven't seen it, it's really good because it gives a complete overview of what OSCQR is and does. But I also like to share it in this session because as you're thinking about an implementation plan, you need to court your stakeholders that will assist you with the plan. And so it helps to have this video to help to explain to stakeholders who may not be familiar with OSCQR at all, to give them a brief overview. So I encourage you to put this in your bag of tools and materials that you can use to assist you with your implementation plan as you are talking about OSCQR and why OSCQR as part of an implementation plan around whatever initiative it is that you're going to try to be articulating in your implementation plan. So it's a really, it's very succinct. It's not that long. It's about 5 minutes, and so it's a good and useful thing to have. And essentially for everyone who is familiar, as I said, OSCQR is a rubric, it's a set of tools, it's a set of materials, and it's a process. And again, intended to support continuous improvement, iteration in course design, a culture of continuous improvement, and to scaffold that relationship between instructional designers and faculty or whoever it is that is involved in online course design. It's really not intended to create any kind of contention or conflict between folks. It really looks at course design as if we're all on the same side of the table, trying to look at what's working and what needs improvement or what should go into an online course if it's a new instructor or new course, and to have a set of standards that you can look at and understand as you are building or refreshing elements in the design of your online course. All right, so with that, let's go on to the brainstorming activity. And so I want you all to navigate over to the folder that I mentioned. And Erin's going to pop the link to the folder in the chat. And then once you're in the folder, I'd like you to navigate to the small group discussion planning document, that Google Doc that's in there. And it's called, and I have it highlighted here, small group discussion planning. And so once you get into the folder and click on that link, you will see this document here. So we're going to have 10 minutes where you can work independently, individually, to begin to brainstorm things that you're going to need to do as sort of like a pre-step to creating your implementation plan. So you want to think about who your stakeholders are, and it's going to vary depending on if you're doing this institutionally, if you're doing this departmentally, if you're doing this in a unit or a program. So go ahead and begin. You can go ahead and start adding your ideas about who the stakeholders might be. And then I'm going to just go through this doc so you understand what I'm asking you to do for those 10 minutes. I want you to think about what model of course review will work best for your context. And that'll depend and vary based on the scope, scale, and context of your initiative. So start thinking about what that initiative might be. Is it about accessibility? Is it about regular and substantive interaction? Is it about improving overall quality? Is it about infusing more social and teaching presence in terms of engagement within an online course? So think about what the context of your initiative might be. And then think about how, within that context, how you might implement a course review initiative. Something, might be informal by instructors and/or instructional designers. It might be during faculty development activities for new online courses that you conduct at your institution or in your department. It might be informal by the instructor themselves as a self-assessment to improve their course after their first delivery or after a few deliveries of their course. It might be a little bit more formal by the instructional designer, so something to check a course before it goes live. It might be as part of a peer review process that happens cyclically, or it might be a multidisciplinary team review process. And so there's a spot there that says add your thoughts here and then a bullet under that spot. So add your comments there so that we collect everybody's comments sort of in the same spot. And then think about what your timeline might be. And you can work backwards. So, when do you want the courses that have been reviewed or your initiative, the results of your initiative ready? So think backwards from there. Try and estimate. This is all an estimate at this point, and it's just to brainstorm. How long you think it would take in order to implement? Would that be a year from now? Is that realistic? When would you realistically think that you might be able to implement your plan and have courses that might be ready? So you would put those things here under add your thoughts here. For that particular question. And then finally, the last question is, what are the policies and institutional organizational structures or procedures what has to be taken into account for any aspect of your initiative. So start to imagine and think about what it would actually take in terms of policies and procedures and other aspects of your context, what it would actually take to implement, to conduct this this initiative and implement this plan. And then as people are adding their thoughts, then look at them and reflect on them and see if you can see if anything is missing. Okay, I'm going to stop talking and let you begin to work. And I'm going to set us a timer for 10 minutes. And I'm going to let you go ahead and work on that worksheet. If you have any questions, go ahead and feel free to unmute and ask. feel free to jump around to other sections of the doc if you want to. It's fine. Erin, you said the audio was a little jumpy, so I'm turning it off.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, it was kind of coming in and out. I don't know if that was happening to anybody else, but I don't want it to be distracting.
My internet has been acting up weirdly. So let's see. You can put them up individually, and I'm going to briefly go over it with everyone after we finish. Maureen, you've never seen the video? You have to watch it. It's really cute. I loved working on that. Oh yeah, a lot of people have seen it. All right, good. Go back to about 5 minutes left. So keep in mind that you might be able to design an implementation plan that would target something specific that you're trying to improve. So think, for example, about accessibility, which is something that is I think, in everyone's minds these days. And there's always things like excess, regular and substantive interaction, some of the Department of Education regulations that are looming. And, you may want to think about engagement or adding some particular element to each of the courses and needing some larger scale initiative in order to do that. So it doesn't just have to be about, you know, reviewing and refreshing the courses. It can be targeted with a specific objective. Sorry, DOJ, sorry. But there are also DOE regulations. RSI is DOE.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, DOJ is the accessibility.
I'm just like up to my eyeballs in this DOJ stuff and accessibility on my campus. So
Yep. It's a big deal. So, right, like,
huge.
so you could focus an initiative around that, and it will take, a larger scale initiative in order to have any kind of make headway on that, right?
Yeah.
Got about 2.5 minutes left. So this exercise is really important, a foundational piece to help you start thinking about, some of these foundational pieces that need to be in place when you're thinking about implementing a plan that's either at the institutional or school or department level or even program level. Um, Anything that has a little bit of a larger scale, you're going to need to have some of these things thought through, and you may have a committee or a board at your institution that you could um, um, include in the process. And so, as you're doing this activity, think about how you might use this activity with those folks as you begin to put your team together to help you with an implementation plan. You'll have access to this document. It's an artifact of this session, so you will have access to it, and you can make a copy of it and use it yourself. And so it's a template that you can use in an activity that you set up for your stakeholder group that's going to assist you with your plan. We have less than a minute left, almost done. Go ahead and read what others have been saying and see if that helps you to think of anything that's missing or that you also would like to include or refine in some way. Excellent work. All right. Thank you, everyone. That was great. And I want to take a look at your responses here and see, does anyone have any thoughts that they want to share as they did this exercise? You can just unmute. The list of potential stakeholders is great. I love to see that students was the first list. And let's look here about the types of reviews: informal, formal. Okay, very good. And then thoughts about timeline. Someone wants to try it within a year. It's this spring, fall launch, next 2 to 3 years, starting with individual assessments. Okay. And then here, policies and context in that regard that you need to consider. Good. Accrediting bodies, financial support, shared governance. Some pushback anticipated. Good. So anything that you can anticipate, you can, try and think of some ways to mitigate. So I've done this webinar and this as a workshop many times. And so in that folder that I mentioned, the Google folder, I have an example document that has the responses from all of the different webinars that I've ever conducted, all of the different groups of people that I've ever done this activity with. And so you have access to this so that you can go back and compare what we came up with today with the list that is an aggregate of, all of the different sessions that I have, and see from your own personal context if you missed anybody and anybody that you think would be particularly relevant or important to not exclude as a stakeholder in helping you to be successful in this initiative. So I want to make sure that you know that example document exists that you can then refer back to check your own list against. And you can do this also with, if you do this activity with your stakeholder group, when you are initiating your plan, you can then do the same thing as compare the list that you come up with your stakeholders to this list as well. And it's a really good activity to help you think through what some of these things are that you might not have thought about in this way previously. So yeah, that's the whole cool thing about brainstorming. So there's also a bunch of different models here that are listed. And I go through periodically and try and remove some of the redundancy, but you can take a look. And then timelines is all the different types of timelines that folks have articulated. And then in this section in 4, these are some of the structures, procedures, and policies that folks have identified over the various iterations or implementations of this particular workshop. So you can check it. And I will then at some point or another take what came out of our session today with you all and add it to this document so that I continue to keep an example document with everybody who's done this brainstorming activity with their thoughts represented. Okay, so now let's move on to the next thing, activity, which is I'd like you to go and get your implementation plan. So in order to do that, you are going to navigate to that bit.ly, and Erin is going to put that bit.ly, has put that bit.ly in the chat. And then I want you to navigate to the document that says Template Online Course Quality Implementation Plan. And once you have that document open, I'd like you to make a copy of that in your own Google Drive. And I'm just going to navigate over there so you can see what that looks like. This is the drive, the folder. And in that folder is this doc called Template Online Course Quality Implementation Plan. So click on that and you will get this template of a implementation plan, and then you will click File, Make Copy, and that will create a copy of this doc in your own Google folder that belongs to you. I don't have access to it. That it can belong to you. It it now is in your Google Drive and for you to use as your implementation plan template. All right, so once you've done that, I'd like to go through how you use this plan and just prepare you for looking at the plan and adapting the plan to your context. You're adapting this template to your context and to your plan that you're trying to build, whatever the type of initiative around online course design or quality using OSCQR might be. So you would put your institution here. This is obviously the first version, or maybe it's not. So you would, if you've done this before, you would tell us what your version is and then put a date on it. So anything that you see in italics is something for you to modify and customize as your plan. So it's actually really a plan. And I've incorporated a table of contents into this, and it's navigable. The contents, like, in Google Docs, it's a navigable table of contents. So you can click on any one of these elements and jump right to that section. But I do want to show you that this is a comprehensive template with all of these sections identified and kind of templated for you to then use and adapt to the plan that you're building. And like any plan, you want to have an introductory section where you're going to give an overview and a history of whatever the initiative is around. So you would explain, for example, why you are implementing an accessibility initiative, let's say, and you might refer to the DOJ regulations, and you might refer to some historical information around the issue of accessibility with your online courses, and just document that sort of overview of what you're doing and why you're doing and the history of what you're doing in this section. And then you also want to list the members of your task group or your advisory board or your group of stakeholders that you might be enlisting as part of the creation of this implementation plan. I have put some boilerplate information here about OSCQR that you would keep in your implementation plan to acknowledge and recognize that you're using OSCQR. If by chance you're not using OSCQR, which by the way is possible, right? You could use this implementation plan with any course quality rubric. It could be your own homegrown one. It could be Quality Matters. It could be the COLT rubric, whatever. So you would just remove the references to OSCQR and then give a different acknowledgement about whatever the tool is that you're using. But if you're going to be using OSCQR, this is the acknowledgement that I have created to be in your plan to help people understand who are reading the plan that you are going to be using OSCQR and some details around it. All right, so then in any implementation plan, you want to talk about the purpose and why the course quality initiative is needed, and you want to think through. So you would replace this text here with that purpose statement. In the communication section under purpose, you would think through how you're going to present this information to your community, how you're going to be transparent about what you're doing, what the phases might be, what the stages might be, what vehicles are you using to communicate, what do you need to publicize and report and document in order to make sure that your full community of stakeholders, not just the ones who are helping you with the plan, but your institutional or departmental community of stakeholders are aware of what you're doing. So just as an example, this is what we used when we did this a number of years ago. It's just an example. And of course, you would remove this example, and really anything that you see in italic is meant to be replaced by your own content. Um, yeah, and so right, you want to have people know that they should visit OSCQR if OSCQR is what you're going to be using, and that there should be some sort of a coordinator of the effort that they would be able to contact for more information as part of that communication section, right? So then you want to think about your online goal, your goals for your initiative, right? What are the specific goals that you have? Again, what's the focus of the initiative? Is it accessibility? Is it RSI? Is it enhancing engagement or improving interaction? Or is it just general continuous improvement or a general review and refresh? Is it something more, like a more cyclical review tied to institutional objectives and program level objectives? So think through what the goals are of the initiative, and don't get overwhelmed by it. You just think what it is that you need and that makes sense in your context, and then document that. You don't have to do all of these things in a plan. Depending on your context, depending on how long you've been doing online, depending on what a burning issue is at your institution right now, you can and also what will work, what will actually work, and be implementable. It's important that the implementation plan be implementable. So think about that and then write up what the goals might be. And this is an activity that you might do with your advisory board stakeholder group to come up with what these things are, to have that stakeholder input into the activity. Think separately about your goals for new online courses and new online faculty and experienced faculty and their more mature online courses that have been delivered a number of times. Think about those two things separately and how your initiative would be, what goals you might have for each of those stakeholder groups separately. And then think about what the model is that you're going to use. We brainstormed a little bit about the different models, and I had a number of bullets that suggested a number of models, but those were just bullets on a continuum, right? There's all different kinds of approaches to review models, and it can be any combination of them, and it can be totally different from what I had bulleted. So just think about what it is that your review and refresh model is going to be, and how you're going to approach implementing that. And then if you're using OSCQR, how are you going to adapt it to your specific needs? Are adaptations to the rubric itself necessary? Is there anything that might be involved in adopting OSCQR if you have not yet adopted OSCQR? What do you need to do in order to get that in place? And if there are any modifications that you want to make, let's say you're doing a nursing program as the focus of the initiative and the plan, and there are specific accrediting standards that you want to target in that plan, then you would need to adapt OSCQR to include the additional standards for that particular program based on whatever might be part of accreditation for that particular program. Think about how you might adopt or adapt, or need to adopt or adapt to OSCQR. And then you might want a section here to explain, depending on your context, why you're adopting OSCQR. And so I have in the goodie bag of links and resources, I have an illustration process that I showed earlier that shows that it's a iterative process, and it's more than just a rubric. It's materials and support resources, and it's that process of continuous improvement. So I put a copy to the link of that graphic in the folder for you. And then you can also use the OSCQR website as information to support your rationale to adopt OSCQR. You can use the OSCQR website itself, has a lot of information there that you might be able to use, as well as the video, as I mentioned, to help folks understand at different levels in your institution, what OSCQR is, what it's about, and again, to support your statement about why you are opting to use OSCQR. So you want to think about your build some organizational awareness, think about approvals you might need and about communications in a very focused and targeted way. And the activity that we did to identify the stakeholders was, number one, to get you all thinking about that, but also to model that activity so that as you're building this template, as I mentioned, you can recreate that activity with your stakeholders to brainstorm as a institution or as a unit or an organization, a department, the key stakeholders that you need to keep in mind as you build and implement your plan. Of course, what you're trying to achieve is buy-in and to get stakeholder input and to be transparent. And so you want to look for mechanisms to communicate sort of status of things and depending on where you are in the process. So getting on the meeting notes and agendas for your various groups would be a good strategy if there are places and things you need to do in order to get certain approvals or um, um, processes that need to get put into place in order to achieve those approvals, or different entities that need to be addressed in order to get the approvals that you might need, or to build consensus on different things. You want to think that through. You want to think through what the benefits are to the faculty that will be engaged in this activity, in this initiative, and how are you going to recognize those efforts? Are you able to offer incentives? Are there other types of recognitions that you can devise that will assist you to help faculty to see something tangible in terms of benefits to the activity? You obviously, with communications, want to update your various stakeholders and leadership. You want to take an inventory of the existing policies and the processes and the resources that you have, and anything that might be missing and necessary to implement any changes. And again, any approvals that might be required, any procurements that might be required in order to implement your process. So think that through. And then we did a little brainstorming on target dates. So you want to consider your key dates, key activities, key things that are going on your campus, when you need to have something done by in order to get something else done. So sort of like thinking about what is a prerequisite of something else that will inform your timeline, and getting that all on a timeline will help you to adjust and make your timeline realistic. Again, an implementation plan has to be implementable, and for that to be, it has to be realistic within your context. And then, build the time in to gain the necessary approvals, and build in, ways to communicate out the different plans, the status of different things, different events that might be included in the plan, and how you're going to report your status and your results. I have in that folder of goodie bags, I have a document. Obviously, I have this document that you can use, that we used for our activity, that you can take a copy of, as I mentioned. And then, of course, there's the one that has it all, all of the examples in it. So I'm just showing you again that that is there for you to use as part of this process. And then I wanted to mention that I have collected a set of course reviewer communications that we used when we implemented this process, and I kind of updated it and made it more generic than the one that we actually used, but it's essentially based on that. And just so that you have an example and don't have to start from zero, from scratch, making up some of these things. These are templates and examples. You can copy this and modify it however you like. And and so essentially, this is like the first email that we sent out to the person that was going to have their course reviewed. And then the next email is once the instructor agreed to have their course reviewed, because in our process, that's what we did. Then we identified, we communicated with the peer reviewers. We did a peer review process. Not saying you have to do it in this way. These are just examples to help you think through some of these communications. And then after they agreed to do the review, they needed a next steps to actually go in and conduct the review. So this is just a series of communication examples based on our context and the plan that we had implemented to show you some of those communications that we used. All right, let's go on to, let's see, what's our next section here? To processes. So this is, in terms of a process, how you adopt and adapt OSCQR. You'll need to document in your plan. So you'll want to have your key stakeholders come in and assist you with any of those activities around adopting or adapting OSCQR. So you need to think through what you are adopting OSCQR for. Is it for a professional development activity with new online instructors? So are you going to be implementing a faculty self-assessment program where faculty, after they teach once their new online course, they conduct their own self-assessment and come up with things to improve that they themselves have identified? Are you adopting OSCQR to target a specific initiative? Is it RSI maybe, or accessibility? Are you adopting it to target a specific degree program or department? And then is it more of a larger scale, institution-wide activity to systematically design a process for reviewing and refreshing courses across your institution? And so you would document that in that section. And then you want to think through what are the professional development activities that you need to have in order to implement your plan. So you might want to implement an OSCQR train the trainer kind of an activity. So you'd need to get your folks, whoever they are, whether they're instructional designers or faculty that are going to be the key reviewers in your plan, they need training probably. And you should think about that. What level of training do they currently have? What training could they use or could be improved? Do they need to have a certification? Would that help the plan if your reviewers were actually certified in some way? And if that is the case, we can help you with that. We provide training and certification to assist you with that. There's also other places that folks can go for certifications. You can go to the Online Learning Consortium, for example, and get your instructional designer certifications there. They also use OSCQR and train instructional designers to use OSCQR. And so you just need to incorporate that as part of the thinking and part of the plan to make sure that those ducks are in a row in anticipation of implementing the plan, that you have the right people with the right training, know-how, and certifications and skills in order to implement your plan. And then you want to develop your course review model. And we brainstormed some on this already this morning. And we want to make sure that you hone in on what your plan actually is, what your model actually is, and document that here. It doesn't have to be all of these models that are listed here, bulleted here. It doesn't have to be any of these models. These are just ideas, examples, and it may be a combination of these. And you might use self-assessment for new online instructors in a more informal way, and then a more formal way for the cyclical institutional review and improvement of courses every 3 years, for example. So it might be a combination of models, and it might be more than one model, and it might be, your own model that you have already been using. So one of the ways that we were able to scale our activities was to create a course reviewer network. And I'm just sharing this with you as an example. Let me share with you the certification first. If you've been to any of our OSCQR trainings this semester, then you know that we've been doing these trainings, the self-assessment, the course reviewer, regular and substantive interaction we've done already, and you're sitting in the implementation one. We have, this OSCQR series that prepares people to do something, like do a self-assessment or do a course review or create an implementation plan. But then once you have the information and the resources, then you have to go do it. And so the certification requires both training, then doing the thing, and then if you want an official certification, you have to provide evidence that you successfully achieved whatever the goal was of the activity. So you reviewed some courses, you reviewed your own course and improved it, or you created an implementation plan. You'd have to give us some evidence of the activity, and then we can issue you your official certifications to sort of complete the cycle there. So Erin, no doubt, will post the link to all of our workshops in the and the certification options for both SUNY and non-SUNY folks. So you can take a look. We'll be redoing this series in the fall. Here is our course reviewer network, just so that you can see the example of one of the ways that we were able to scale. We put out a call across the SUNY system to folks within the system who would be willing to review courses. And we have put this here on our website, on the online teaching website, to share with you all the list of folks who raised their hands and said, yeah, sure, I'd be willing to review somebody's course. And if you go through this list, you can see, I'll go here and pick on Donna Simiel from Niagara County Community College. Her discipline is business and computer science, but she's willing to review any course in any discipline. This is her availability. And then this is her experience and her certifications. And so, yeah, she's OSCQR certified, and she's formally trained in Quality Matters, and Donna would be an excellent person to do a course review. So we have and everyone here actually is vetted. We've there's all different kinds of disciplines in case you're looking for someone in a specific discipline, to see what their experience is and what types of courses they're willing to review or interested in reviewing, and when they're available. So this is how we did it at our level and with our context. So this is an example to help you think about how are you going to, if you can't hire an instructional designer, or if you can't create a group of people who are willing to do reviews, or you don't have access to people, you might train some people and then have them train some people and then use them. And so you start to build your own internal institutional course reviewer network. And it can be, disciplinary focused or interdisciplinary focused. And an excellent example of that is what Ann Miller is doing at Adirondack. Is it Ann? Ann? Is that right?
I'm at Sullivan, not Adirondack.
Sorry, at Sullivan. Sorry.
I think you meant Doris.
sorry, what you're doing with your peer reviewers. Well, maybe it's Doris that's doing
I
that.
think it's Doris.
Doris, sorry.
We had a plan to do it with peer reviewers, but my peer
Yeah, so
reviewers,
Doris at Adirondack is the one who has an excellent peer review example of a peer review network that she's building. And so I hope that, at some point we can showcase Anne's model in one of our community calls. All right, so just, the way that we got that information from people, just to show you a little bit about how we did it, we just put up a Google form and asked for the information. That you saw in that reviewer network page. So all of that information is just comes from this form. We put the form up, we collected the information, and then we posted it here. And it's kind of there as a self-service resource that anyone from our campuses or anywhere really could contact any of these people to see if they would be willing to do a course review for them. Okay, so let's move on to the next section of the rubric of the implementation plan to focus in on new course development. So again, you want to think about how are you using this plan and targeting the specific things related to new online faculty and new course development. So you would document what that plan would be, specifically targeting that group, new courses and new faculty. And how are you using OSCQR? How are you training people to use OSCQR, both your IDs as well as your faculty? And when are you introducing faculty to the standards and to the rubric, and how are you doing that? That's what you would document in your professional development section of the plan. And then, you want to think about your process for new online courses. So that was professional development. What's the process for designing new online courses? When do faculty get introduced to the standards? How do you introduce them? Is there a whole workshop on that? How do you do it? Just how do you do it? And you would document that there. And then, you would also want to think about your process related to how courses, your new online courses are going to be reviewed and improved. Who's doing the review? Is it a self-assessment or is it an instructional design review? Is it formal or is it informal? If it's an instructional designer, what authority do they have? And if there's some issue with the course, when does that review take place? And then who makes the changes in the course that has been identified as needing some improvement? These are things you need to plan for and think through and document in your plan. And so, yeah, there's some examples there. And then you also need to think about, oh, wait, let me just go through some of the resources I wanted to share with you. Again, certifications, and you can certify instructional designers as well as faculty with our webinars. And get them trained. You can leverage us to help you to train your faculty. We have a series, as I mentioned, of badges that we issue when you attend the trainings, and then if you want certification, you provide the evidence, and then we will issue you your certification at any of the levels. We also have an area in the implementation plan to target experience and faculty. Let me see if that's what I'm getting at here. I think that's what this is supposed to be, but I'm just going to jump right to the example. So in the goodie bag of stuff are two PowerPoint presentations with information that I think would be helpful and useful to you. And the first one is about, it describes 3 different types of OSCQR implementations. One, Herkimer, and one at Monroe Community College. So you can see ways that three different types of campuses implemented a you know uh, a course quality initiative using OSCQR. And so center has a particular and unique contact. Monroe is kind of a commuter. I want you to know that this is here, and you can come in and look at the different ways that these campuses designed their implementation plans, and they're very different. And again, it's all dependent on their context. Monroe has a large team of folks to assist with their plan. Herkimer had a very small team, and again, Binghamton was is a university center, so their context is completely different. So I'm just going to point this out to you so that you can come back and take a look at three different OSCQR implementations and see what you can glean or what you can learn, how it might inform your own design. And so there you can see on the left it's Binghamton, and they provide information on the overview of their process. And then Herkimer came in, and we have a description of their process as well. And then Monroe also is here represented with their process, and they have adopted OSCQR to the point of infusing it into their course templates, which any of the course templates that you use from SUNY Online are also infused, but they customized it for Monroe. So you can come in and take a look at this in more detail when you are actually working on your plan for additional insights and information. And then I wanted to show you our process that we used. And again, I adapted this and updated it from when we did it. But again, it's just another example to show you another type of implementation plan to give you ideas and to help you think through as you design your own process. So I'm going to move us forward to keep us going here. Our next section is on, let me just go over to the template here. So I think we are at the section that talks about impact. Is that it? Sorry, hang on just a second while this comes up. Yeah. So process of continuous improvement, I guess, is where we're at. So you want to think about how often you're going to repeat your course quality review and refresh initiative, what's contextually relevant. And again, is it informal? Is it formal? Does it happen every semester? Is it something that's, larger scale and happens every 3 years? And then you want to make sure to leverage that process. Can you share best practices and course designs across your community of online practitioners? What other benefits can you realize from this process? Can you build community? Can you share practices? Can you help people to see some of those additional benefits that we initially brainstormed talked about at the top of this template? Again, how can you leverage them to achieve specific initiatives? How are you going to use them to inform your faculty development and your professional development activities? How does this fit into promotion and tenure? Think that through a little bit. How does this fit into faculty evaluations or curriculum redesign? And how does it support alignment in your institutional program and course level objectives? How does this fit into a middle states review and study, for example, or into strategic planning? might want to think through some of those activities and some of those ways that you can get more out of having implemented this process. So then you want to think in terms of your implementation plan about impact and reporting. And, you need to think about what you're going to measure and how, and then how you'll report it as part of the plan, so that you make sure that you identify those things, before you actually do them. You want to know what you're going to measure before you realize that you either need to measure or that you are already measuring. And you might want to coordinate with your your IR office in order to think that through. You might want to incorporate them into your planning process. And then you want to think about where you might be reporting things, how often, and what you would be reporting. And maybe you have an annual report, maybe as I mentioned, as part of the strategic planning process that gets included. Maybe in your budgetary processes, you want to make sure to have add some information to that process, especially if you need to procure anything. And then, as I mentioned, as part of any accreditation or other types of self-study activities that you might be doing. And then you want to think through, as you are designing the plan and as you are implementing the plan, how can you improve it periodically? Come back to the plan and tweak it to make sure that it is representative of the true context and the things that are actually happening, so that you can continue to use it as a plan to guide your efforts. So thinking about what's working in your plan, thinking about what needs to be improved, and thinking about what improvements could be made to keep track of those things along the way will help you in the long run in terms of implementing the plan. So then another section of the implementation plan is how you are going to celebrate successes and recognize faculty and staff efforts. And these are examples of ways that we have devised to do this. I'm not saying you have to do any of these things. I'm not saying you have to do some of these things, or any one of these things, or all of these things. You can actually leverage some of our processes for this if you want. And so I have them here as examples, and want you to think about your own context and how you are going to celebrate and recognize folks who go through this. So my examples include badges, and you will be getting a badge for attending this session. I love badges. If any of you want to give me a badge for anything, I would love it. We use Credly as our badging system, and we have a whole lot of badges that have been identified for various purposes. I do a whole webinar on badging, and at some point or another, if you're interested in badging and what we do and how we do it, please come to that webinar. So in addition to celebrate success, we created an effective practices award program. So as people were going through course reviews, we identified, or you might identify, effective practices that you want to recognize and showcase. And so a very easy way to do that is to have an effective practices award program, or you could nominate those effective practices to our program. And we give out nice trophies, I guess is what they're called, plaques. So you might want to leverage our process, come up with your own effective practices award program. We also have courses for observation. You might want to think about including that as part of your recognition. We have courses that are good examples and models for new online faculty, and we're just in the process of releasing the new set in Brightspace for fall 2024. And these are the courses that will be accessible and be able to be showcased in the new Brightspace environment. These work nominated by the campus, these courses, on a set of criteria that we developed, and then the courses were nominated against that criteria for being showcased in this way. And so keep your ears open for the announcement on that, which will be coming before Christmas. And this is the nomination process that we have, and this is the criteria. And there's a lot of criteria. So as the instructional designer, you would be thinking about all of these things to see whether or not a course you want to nominate fits that criteria. There may be amazing courses that are really, really good, but that wouldn't be necessarily good for this particular program, because we want good, solid designs that won't scare new online faculty away, or that won't be so difficult to implement that only that unique instructor would be able to deliver it. So that's why we have a bunch of criteria to consider when you're nominating your course. And every campus every year will have the ability to nominate courses that they feel should be on this list of courses for observation. We created a program of teaching fellows, SUNY Online teaching fellows in lots of different roles, to recognize the expertise and the roles within our community. And, again, not saying you have to do this. You could actually leverage our program for that. But this is one of the ways that we recognize and showcase and share success. Another is our online teaching ambassador program, and you may be familiar with this program. Again, the campus nominates very enthusiastic online. And that's another way that you can recognize and showcase faculty who are doing really cool things, in your course review process, so as an outcome of your implementation plan, or just in general. These are again, these are sort of collections of badges. The other page I showed you was like a list of all of
We have a question, Alex.
the badges, but these are collections of badges. There's community engagement badges. Also, sorry.
All right, we have a question. I think there's some overlap with the audio.
Sorry, Aaron.
I had put it in the chat. I was already asking about the SUNY Online ambassador nominations. I know those are usually recognized at the online summit, which is in February, but I haven't nominated anyone. I haven't seen the form. Did it come out already?
That's actually going out next weekend. So you're good timing on that.
Yeah, really good timing. So keep that in mind. Be on the lookout for it. Every SUNY campus has the ability to nominate 2 faculty from their faculty for this recognition. And I hope that we want to recognize your amazing faculty and give them that recognition. They get a web page with a testimonial on our website. They get a certificate, and they can come to the summit. And then throughout the year, that cohort of ambassadors has the opportunity to share their enthusiasm with the entire community of practitioners, both internal to SUNY and external, in lots of different ways that they can choose. They can choose however they want to do it. And so, yeah, be on the lookout for that call, which Aaron says will be next week. Again, I mentioned the mentoring program earlier, so I won't show you that again. But we do have fellow chats that we've done where folks can submit an idea for a chat. So this is a way that we showcase expertise within the community. So any faculty or instructional designer or staff person could submit a proposal to do a chat for all of us on something cool that they do, some challenge that they solved, something amazing in terms of the design of their course, or some process, whatever it is that they'd like to talk about. We have a mechanism to showcase those efforts from across the system. And then again, the ambassador engagement activities that I mentioned that go along with the ambassador program, we have all kinds of ideas for how the ambassadors and others can share their enthusiasm for online learning with all of us and or with their institution. And so these are all web pages that are on our website. And again, you have access to all of these links in that link doc in the goodie bag. And again, this was how in the section of the implementation plan around how you will recognize success and provide recognitions to everyone who's involved in the implementation planning process. And those were just examples of some of the ways that we have done it. And you can leverage some of those, or you can create your own for your own institution or school or department, whatever it might be. Now, where are we in the I think we're towards the end of the plan. And communications. This was set up. All right, where are you? Impact and reporting we did, right? And program evaluation and improvements, success. That's where we had been. So budget and staff and resource allocations is the next section. So every good implementation plan has a budget. And so I want you to think through, what is your budget for your implementation plan? What do you need? What amount of time is going to need to be devoted by the individuals who are working on this? And you want to document that. Will your plan involve putting welcome videos and course tours in all of your online courses? If that's the case, you need something to address videography and maybe multimedia. You might want an accessibility expert if you're doing an accessibility initiative. You might want a librarian or some through all your courses to make sure that everything is that the copyright permissions are all in order. And if you're going to be altering OSCQR at all, the interactive version of it, you might need a Google Forms development expert in order to make those customizations to the online interactive rubric. And then what do you need in terms of tools and materials and resources? There's no cost for the OSCQR rubric, but you might need closed captioning services. You might need to get some sort of an accessibility tool. You might, if you want to do badging, you're going to have to consider how what your platform is for badging, and there are costs associated with those things. And then in terms of professional development, what certifications and trainings do you need to have in place? Do you have any incentives for faculty, any incentives for your reviewers? What's your ongoing professional development budget? Because just because they've been trained once and certified once doesn't mean that it's done. It's an ongoing commitment to professional development. And do you want to have a membership in any national association, for example, OLC or WCET or UPSEA, any of the national associations as part of the plan? You need to document the costs of that. And then, of course, I see your note, Anne. Every plan needs a signature page, and so you want to, as you complete your plan, formally endorse the plan with the powers that be that would be relevant for that. And then you, in your plan, need some appendices. So your organizational chart, maybe. Here is an example of course reviewer expectations and an agreement. And also I have a link to the OSCQR process workflow as an example that might go in this section. And so, this is in italics, so you would replace this with your own agreement. This is just there as an example in terms of the expectations that you might have of your course reviewers. So you need to think through, if you're going to have course reviewers, what's the agreement? Right? What's the commitment? If you line up a bunch of reviewers and then they don't do it, or they don't do it on time, or they don't do it well, that is a risk in your plan. So you want to mitigate that with a course reviewer expectations agreement. And then any references, you would list any references there, and you might want to define key terms for those who might not be familiar with some of the terminology. And then anything additional. So that is the implementation plan. a good tour, a good solid tour of the plan. And you now have a copy of that, and you have some information and a goodie bag of examples that you can take with you to help you to implement this plan. Before we run out of time, I want to run over to give you a little bit of an overview of some of the tools that you might need to leverage if you're not familiar with OSCQR. So this is the OSCQR website. There's information about OSCQR here, including that video and including information about, the historical information that we have on OSCQR, and the usage of OSCQR outside of SUNY. All of the standards are set up in a similar way. So they have, there's a title, they belong in a section. So Standard 42 is in the, I think it's in the interaction section. Yeah, no, it's in the activities section. No, it is in the interaction one. So they're all set up in the same way. They have a similar format. There's a little mini learning video. There's always references. There's lots of ideas and links to get lost in. There's lots of examples. There's stuff from Topper. If it has stuff from Topper that's in that, that's a resource from our friends at the University of Central Florida. Some additional citations and resources, and a way to contribute to.
It looks like, yeah, Alex was totally frozen and it looks like booted out. So I will pick up where she left off. Just 1 second.
Oh, I thought that was me because it's so windy. I thought I lost internet.
It is, it's very windy here.
Yeah.
And I think that's been part of the challenge for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Erin.
Yeah, we're closing out anyway. Alex was just going over some resources that folks may want. And so some of them include, here we go. This is where we were. And so this document is in the workshop folder. She was talking about the different areas of the OSCQR website, how to get the interactive rubric and dashboard if you are unaware of how to do that. And I'm going to put a link to our past recordings as well for the series, because we did 3 different ones, one on doing a self-assessment using the OSCQR rubric, one on using it for multiple course reviews and using the dashboard to organize that, and one on regular and substantive interaction. So if you weren't able to attend those, I'll give you that recording of the playlist for that. In addition to that, there are extra sort of bonus links here. If you are not already a fellow, we encourage you to join. If you are from an outside organization, we have a specific role for you as a friend of SUNY. And that helps us. We use this list of fellows to communicate any of our upcoming activities and programs, some of which you heard Alex mention today. Our ambassador program is about to launch, and our effective online practices program is also about to launch. So those are ways that we try to showcase and elevate the work that is being done across our network. We do have a Facebook page for opening our community networking beyond SUNY. And so we use Facebook to do that for everybody to join. You can use the hashtag OSCQR to search for all of the posts that have been tagged with OSCQR. You can also create an account in Credly as a way to kind of capture all of the badges that you earn. You will get one from this session. Again, if you join as a fellow, you get one as a fellow. And so we have a bunch of different badges available to you. And I know that Alex shared with you the Credly profile. We have a little bit more here, and I see that Alex is back. I don't know if you wanted to talk through any of the closing links, Alex, but that's what we were going through here.
Yeah, sorry about that, everyone.
That's fine.
I guess my internet was unstable, and I don't know what you last heard. I was rambling on about RSI, and then it just crapped out. So, the only thing that I wanted to mention was we have tools available for you, for a larger scale initiative, and the online interactive rubric and dashboard are two of those tools. And I just want to, can I share, Erin? Yeah. I don't know if it's going to let me do it. Oh, here we go. Share. Share. And then let me just show you, you would go to the Get Oscar page, and on the Get Oscar page, oh, it's not letting me navigate away from this. You would fill out a form to get the interactive version of the rubric, and fill out a form to get the interactive version of the dashboard. And it's the dashboard that I really want to mention as part of this session, because if you're in charge of a larger scale initiative, the dashboard, the interactive version of the dashboard as the manager of a larger scale process, will allow you to create rubrics and have a dashboard where you can create them and then assign them and then come back to track your initiative. And so you can see here, I'm showing you a demo. I have a bunch of courses listed, and it tells me who the ID is, who the faculty is, in terms of how finished they are with their review. So it's actually pulling that information from each of the rubrics, and then how much time it's going to take to refresh the course, who the ID is, and any notes that I might have as the manager of the process. So this dashboard helps you to manage a larger scale process. And so if you're doing an implementation plan that has a lot of reviews that you're going to be doing, this dashboard could really help you. Erin, where did you get to in terms of the wrap-up activities? Where were you?
So we got down to the different badges that folks can earn. We talked about joining as a fellow, joining the network community.
Okay, cool. So as part of this workshop, you're going to get the implementation badge. You're also going to get either a friend of SUNY badge if you're a friend of SUNY, meaning not working for SUNY, and then you'll get an experienced online practitioner badge if you are. There's the friend of SUNY badge, and then the other badge if you don't already have it, and we'll check you. If you're in SUNY, you probably already have these badges. In addition, I wanted to mention that we have created a whole bunch of different types of OSCQR-informed templates, and you may be aware of those, you might not be aware of those. They're available to anyone internal to SUNY or external to SUNY for any course modality, and you can get the zip files, the Brightspace zip files here in this Google folder, and they have also been exported in Common Cartridge, so if you use a different learning management system other than Brightspace, you can also use them. And just to show you a little bit what they look like, you can't actually access this link. So this link you won't be able to get to because of access issues. And I don't know if it'll come up, but anyway, here it is. This is the asynchronous template. And it's a template, for an asynchronous course. Again, we have them in all modalities. I just wanted to show you the asynchronous one. And we designed these templates with a group of people from across SUNY, and they are Oscar informed and accessible. They've been reviewed for accessibility, and also they're mobile optimized. And we have a document that shows how every element in the template maps to Oscar standards, and that's our Oscar alignment document. And I do have access to that in the folder in the goodie bag. You can have access to that, and it's not coming up because my internet is unstable. I think I'm done, Aaron. I want to thank everyone for coming. I want to remind you about the goodie bag, and Aaron, maybe you can pop the links in the chat again to the Google folder with everything.
Yep.
And then also I want to point out the page in that folder that has all the links, because that'll give you exactly in the order that I showed them, all of the links that we went through today. And yeah, I want to remind you that you have that implementation plan, and if you didn't grab a copy of it when we were doing that activity, to make sure to go back to that. I'm going to stop sharing because this is not working. To make sure to go back to the goodie bag and look at the link that says template, and grab that, open it up, and make a copy of it, and that will be your you'll be able to create your own template with that, your own copy of that template. And I think that's it. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate your time. If anyone has any questions and you're still able to hang out here, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Alex. And I put in the chat for folks who were asking earlier, the spring series it actually went, registration opened while we were in this webinar. So CPD had it all ready for us to go by the end of this session. So if you want to sign up for the Oscar series again, it's ready for spring.
I did it already as soon as you posted the link.